Welcome back. In today's video we have a submission from Marcosa65 and this cool looking image, definitely high quality. So let's jump into it. Since you are using this in a game, I'm not sure how you are using it in a game because I haven't played your game. I'm gonna guess there are two possibilities. One, you are using this image as a static image, maybe for main menu or a certain scene in a game, so just as a static background piece and nothing else. The second possible use case, if this is a background with multiple layers in order to create a parallax effect, and I'm guessing it's definitely the parallax one. I'll just cover both of these cases quickly, so let's see. If this was a piece where you are using it just by itself, it's static, I would say take into consideration where exactly is your light source. So in this case, we have the moon over here on the top right corner, and we have the cast shadow from the trees, and I'm guessing this is the cast shadow, so we have this right here. I would say take the moon into consideration. I'm not going to go into details on how exactly you can calculate the cast shadow. I'll explain it in the course in the near future. If we just connect and take the moon into consideration, it will be something like this. Now, I'm just eyeballing this. So like this is just roughly speaking, but you can see where I'm going this with. So you have the before and you have the after. Now, again, this is only in if this is being used as a static image. So if you are using this as a parallax effect, then we can move up to the next tips. Okay, so I've created multiple extra frames, so we have a few comparisons to work with. So this is the first one in case of the static. Now let's go on to the layering in case of parallax effect. I would say that if you are using this as a multiple layers background, then we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you have 8 different layers, possibly 9 if the moon is an extra layer for some reason, but I'll say 8. So you can combine these layers if you want to, of course. So for example, you can combine 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and in your specific case, you would have to combine 6, 7, and 8. Why? Because you have these highlights which hit these clouds, so this layer of clouds, you would have to move those together. Otherwise, if you move this outline of highlights, which is connected to this layer at a different pace, then you have this highlight overlapping sooner or later in a sense that it shouldn't be, and in that way you would destroy the parallax effect. So you have to be careful about those things. Now I'm going to remove those simply for practical reasons. I'm not saying it looks bad, it looks okay, and I see you are using glow effect and transparency layers, but for this specific reason, so you can actually separate these layers, you would have to remove those highlights. So I'm just going to do that very quickly, and I'll speed this one up. Okay, there we go. So now we have removed those lines. So this is the before and this is the after. So it's a tiny change and it loses a bit of its charm, I would say. But for practical reasons, again, you have to do that. Otherwise, you'll mess up your parallax effect. Unless you really want to keep these 3 layers together, in which case it's totally fine. And the last thing I would say about this image is shape language. And mind you, I have to be nitpicky about this image because it's really beautiful, it's high quality. So everything I say, it's up to you. I think that you have taken some inspiration from Adam Siwayunis, simply because I see some similarities. So between these two, they're not the same, obviously, but I think there maybe was a little bit of influence. And if so, I would like to say that there's one crucial tip that we can learn about the comparison between these two, because if you look at this image by itself, one thing that I am bothered a little bit, just a little bit, are these clouds in the background. Do you see how thick they are? And then you have one layer of clouds in the background which are transparent, so you can see the moon through it. Now the clouds can of course be thick or thin, it really depends, but the way you have rendered these clouds in comparison to these mountains, at first glance I thought these were like mountains in the background because they read similarly, especially when I've looked with this highlight. You know how you can have like these highlights here on the mountain? I thought at a first glance that these were like a similar thing. The shape and the flow of these mountains and the clouds are so similar. At first glance, I thought they were the same. What I mean by the shape is, do you see how the mountains, their tips are very rounded? They flow as curves. And same goes for these clouds in the background, right? Now, if we compare these, for example, to Adam's specific case, do you see how the mountains have very sharp peaks? And the shapes in the background are very rounded. Okay, and this helps also to differentiate between layers and the material. In pixel art, we have to imply a lot of stuff. So when we have, for example, in the background, where you don't have a lot of details, the shape is also really important, just as much as the colors and the rendering style. I will just quickly go over this image and add a bit of harsh peaks so you can see what I'm talking about. And I'm going to speed this one up. Okay, so there we go. So I added some harsh peaks. Now, look the before and after. So it's a very tiny change. There's not a lot of going on. But now I can differentiate that these are the clouds behind at a first glance instead of trying to analyze what's happening. That could be just me. Perhaps other people see it immediately as clouds, so I could be wrong. Yeah, take that into consideration. So shape language also plays a role. And yeah, that's about it. So I think you did an amazing job. Again, this looks amazing as is, so I had to be a bit nitpicky on what to give feedback on. But yeah, I hope these tips help you a little bit, and that's all for today. And just remember, relax and have fun.